guys, and welcome to today's video. So today I'm going to be doing a review of the new Natasha Denona Mini Metropolis eyeshadow palette. This is her holiday exclusive bundle that is the very first of her mini palettes that has actually come with an eyeshadow brush gifted as well. It's the same price as all of her other mini eyeshadow palettes, which is 25 US, 33 Canadian. So a super great steal, and I'm going to be doing a look with this today, reviewing the brush, reviewing the palette, giving you my final thoughts. So if you're interested, then keep on watching. So this is a mini eyeshadow palette, as I said. I love the mini palettes by Natasha Denona because it's a very reasonable price realistically for her eyeshadow, like compared to her larger palettes. She has some much larger palettes for $170, and then there is a more medium-sized palettes she has that are for $87. Those are Canadian prices. And then her mini palettes are only $33 Canadian, so it's a much more reasonable price. It's a 5-pan eyeshadow palette. And to be honest, from my experience with Natasha Denona's eyeshadow, it's some of the best in terms of eyeshadow, and I personally have almost always thought that her palettes were worth the money. But we're obviously going to be going through, I'm going to try to use all of the shades today so I can give you a thorough review of the whole entire bundle here. So this is based on the best-selling Metropolis palette. She does already have a full-size Metropolis palette. The shades are inspired by New York scheme of the 20th century. This palette comes with 2 metallics and 3 mattes, which I love to see the good variety in terms of textures. It's absolutely stunning through and through. I have never tried the actual large Metropolis palette, so this is like my first time dipping my toes in Natasha Denona Metropolis collection, and I'm excited. When I saw this color scheme, I had to get it. So beautiful. So let's just do it. All right, so I have already prepped my eyes with MAC Paint Pot, and I am going to be going straight into the palette. I'm just going to create a look with this, play with it, have some fun. You can follow along the look if you already have this, and at the end I will give you my final thoughts. I'm going to take the brush as well. This is what the brush actually looks like. It's like a mini brush, but the actual like brush fibers are very, very soft. It feels like a very good quality brush. Okay guys, I actually have mixed emotions about this, and I'm very surprised at how I'm feeling. So this is probably the first time I've tested Natasha Denona's eyeshadow, and I have not been overly impressed. So I started out with the mattes. They were all okay. The two lighter ones were pretty good. I didn't have too many issues. They both were pretty pigmented for the shade that they are, and they both blended out really well. This one here did come in handy a lot in terms of blending everything out, softening all the edges. Loved those two. This one is quite warm tone, almost like a mustard yellow undertone. So if you're not a huge fan of super warm browns, you may not use this that often. And then this brown here, I did have some issues with. So I did feel as I was applying and blending it out, I was getting some patchiness, and I was getting, you know, something that I've experienced with some other eyeshadows before in the past, where you apply it and then you blend it out, and there's certain areas that it just tends to lose its pigmentation. So I did end up creating a really pretty look, and I am happy with the look I created. It just was a little more effort than typically necessary for Natasha Denona. Her eyeshadows are usually like overly pigmented, you know, blend out almost on their own, and I didn't feel like, especially this one did. It definitely wasn't up to par when it comes to Natasha Denona's eyeshadow, so unfortunately the mattes weren't my favorite. But as I said, I was able to work it out, and it did work out to become a really pretty look. When I went to the metallics, I thought, well, this will just liven everything up. Like these will be the stars of the show. This one here, super, super pretty, very pigmented, a lot of fallout, guys. So definitely recommend this palette when you're doing eyes first. Eyeshadows like these, like metallics, especially when you use your finger, or them dry on a brush, you typically do end up with fallout. So I'm not saying that like there should have been no fallout, but it was a little more than I expected, and it was actually quite difficult to fix. So a lot of times fallout, you know, it'll be on your cheek and you just wipe it away. I felt like this actually stuck, and the color kind of deposited onto the skin. You can see a little shadow here on both sides. So I would just recommend doing your eyes first. Honestly, fallout, I'm never really like super opposed to a palette if it has a lot of fallout. So that's not something that I'm like super worried about, but I did think I wanted to mention it still. Definitely do your eyes first with this one. So the teal one, really, really pretty, as I said, pigmented. You know, you can see it shining through. It's a really beautiful shade, although I did feel like, and honestly, even this gold, again, really beautiful. Like if I swatch it, I'm sure it's gonna look stunning. Like so pretty, right? Super, super, super pretty. I used a brush when I applied this because I was going in the inner corner. Now this brush did have my excess paint pot on it, which it's a technique I use. I use a brush to apply my eye primer, and then I use that brush later on for lid metallics, like lid toppers, because then usually the eyeshadow will stick to the brush a little bit better and deposit a little bit more intensely. I didn't really feel like that did that. Now I did break out my MAC Fix Plus and wet both of the metallics, and they were much more intense, much more pigmented, creamy, the whole shebang. So I definitely recommend wetting the metallics if you do want them like bright and vibrant like this. I did feel like it also did minimize the fallout as well. So if you put them on a brush and you wet it, like I actually went pretty heavy. Like I got it on the brush and I did 2 or 3 sprays onto the brush. The only thing with these metallics is, number one, there was the fallout, but then also I just felt like without wetting them, they weren't really as intense as Natasha Denona's metallics are. And not only intense, because not all metallics have to be in your face bright, but they weren't like super evenly pigmented. Like I felt like this gold when I applied with the brush, even with the MAC paint pot on, I just felt like it kind of was just almost like dull, and but wetting them really helped. So this palette I think is very much to each their own. It's not something I would necessarily like rave about, because there were a few shades that were a little bit less impressive as I would have expected, but the colors are really, really beautiful. And with those few tips that I mentioned, like the metallics, the 2 metallics, if you wet them, So stunning. The only thing I would say is not only were the metallics like needed to be wet to really be that Natasha Denona level that they typically are at, but also the mattes weren't what I expect from Natasha Denona either. So this palette unfortunately is not my favorite. I would not go out of my way to recommend it. If you are interested, you know, be aware of the few things I've said. The mattes may be a little bit more like finicky. Especially this dark brown was a tiny bit patchy, and I just felt like I really needed to like do the extra work to get it pigmented where I wanted it, but blended out where I wanted it. Yeah, that's kind of, I'm like, me, it's meh. It's like a meh. And I think the reason I'm so disappointed is because typically Natasha Denona is like some of the absolute best eyeshadow I've ever used, like ever. I'll actually link down below her Smoke and Vision palette. It's the mini Smoke and Vision eyeshadow palette. It's like the black smoky with the nice bright silver. That metallic is like one of the best silver metallics I've ever used. It's so creamy, so pigmented, nice and light reflective. You know, there might have been a little bit of fallout, but like not as much as I noticed with these. So that would be one I would recommend more. Obviously it's about color preference as well. I'll actually list down below my top few favorite mini palettes in case you're looking for some recommendations, just because I don't know if I would say go out of your way to purchase this, unfortunately, and that's the very first time I think I've ever said that about her palettes. The brush, it's nice. It's also not one, I mean, the thing is, I used it mainly for this dark brown, so I would like to use it with an eyeshadow that's a little bit better quality that I don't have to do so much extra work with, because I felt like I was having trouble, like I was applying it and blending out, and then I was getting frustrated. So I don't know if I could fully say how much I like this brush. It is very like flat, so it is a more precise brush. It's not necessarily like a big blending brush. It's not the best for blending shades out. It's more for, you know, pressing or like precise crease work, or like you could do precise lower lash line work. So definitely a more precise brush, which is totally fine because you need those in your collection as well. But just thought I'd put it out there, like it kind of looks like a blending brush. You could do some blending with it, but I just personally would use it more for like precision work, just because it is so flat and the tip is pretty precise. So yeah, that's my final opinion. I'm not wowed, so that's unfortunately how I feel after testing this. Don't get me wrong though, after the extra work I had to put in, the look is pretty. Like, I'll give it that. It is very pretty, but it's not, I feel like it could have been even better if the shades turned out to be, you know, that Natasha Denona true level of quality. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel below. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.